So hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are cracking the code on a massive topic in dental materials, that is impression materials. Whether you are preparing for BDS second year university exam or getting ready for your Neet MDS exam or your first clinical session, this video will break it down so clearly that you will never mix up your alginates and elastomers again. Okay, so grab your notebook and any कोई भी book जो आप prefer करते हो वो and your notepad, and let's dive into the lecture. Okay, so what is an impression material? So definition is that an impression material is a substance used to record the size, shape and relationship of oral tissues and surrounding structures, producing a negative replica from which a positive cast or model can be obtained. Real world example अगर मैं देखूँ तो think of walking on the beach. Your foot presses into the wet sand and leaves a footprint. So the footprint in the sand is a negative replica, that is impression. And if you poured liquid plaster into that footprint and let it harden, you get an exact 3D copy of your foot. That is the positive cast. So that is all about the impression and impression material. Let's come into the master classification, and we classify these materials primarily by how they behave after they set, that is non-elastic and elastic. Non-elastic impression materials में आते हैं impression compound, impression plaster, zinc oxide eugenol, impression paste. Elastic impression materials में आते हैं hydrocolloids and elastomeric impression materials. Hydrocolloids के अंदर आते हैं reversible and irreversible. Reversible is agar, irreversible is alginate. Elastomeric impression materials के अंदर आते हैं polysulfide silicon में condensation silicon, addition silicon and polyether. Okay, so that is the whole classification of the impression materials. Then ideal requirements के पास में आते हैं. इसमें आप ideal requirements को आप remind कर सकते हैं the mnemonics से the pass, days, CE. Okay, so the P stands for the pleasant taste and odor. Pleasant taste and odor. Example, no patient wants a material that tastes like a industrial chemicals ना, तो that's why impression material में pleasant taste and odor डाला गया. F is stand for the accurate reproduction of details, that is इसका example that it must capture microscopic margins of a crown prep. अगर हम impression लेते हैं उसके बाद हम crown preparation के लिए उस impression को देते हैं, तो अगर हम उसका accurate reproduction of details किए हैं तो वो microscope crown preparation का microscopic margin accurate capture करता है उसी चक्कर उसके कारण. S for short setting time, उसका example है the faster it sets in the mouth, the less the patient gags. Second, S for adequate strength. Example जैसे like it shouldn't tear when you pull it out of the mouth ना, तो adequate strength होना चाहिए उस impression material का. D stand for good dimensional stability. Example like it shouldn't shrink or expand while sitting on the lab bench. Okay. A stand for adequate working time. Example, give the dentist enough time to mix and load the tray without rushing. And C for compatibility with gypsum product, that is doesn't ruin the surface of the stone cast poured on it. जब हम impression को pour करें और हमें कास्ट चाहिए तो ऐसा ना हो कि वो ठीक ही नहीं है, पूरा कास्ट का सरफेस ही ख़राब हो जाए. ओके, एंड E stand for the elastic after setting. Okay, and C for cost effective economical, E for easy manipulation. So note ये कि also must be non toxic, non irritating and easy to remove from the mouth. That is the most important part, कि must be non toxic, non irritating and easy to remove from the mouth. That is the whole ideal requirements of the impression material. Okay, Now let's come to the zinc oxide eugenol impression paste, which comes under the non-elastic rigid impression materials. Non-elastic rigid impression materials become completely stiff and hard once set. They are primarily used for patients without any teeth, edentulous patients, because if you try to use them around teeth, they will lock into the spaces between the teeth and break. So it is used for patient without any teeth, not the dentulous patient, not for the dentulous patients. So the non elastic impression materials में सबसे first आता है impression compound. Okay. And उसका definition, a thermoplastic material that softens when heated and hardens when cooled. Composition is resins 40%, waxes 7% and fillers 50%. Types में type 1 low fusing for impressions and type 2 high fusing for trace. इसके प्रोज हैं कि रीयूजेबल होता है, easy to manipulate and excellent for border molding, shaping the edge of a denture. And इसका कौन ये है कि poor dimensional stability, distort if overheated and cannot record undercuts. दैट अगर आप इम्प्रेशन कंपाउंड के बारे में पढ़ रहे हो तो इसका एग्जांपल आप ले सकते हैं कि थिंक ऑफ अ हॉट ग्लू और चॉकलेट. व्हेन यू अप्लाई हीट इट मेल्ट्स एंड बिकम्स मोल्डेबल. व्हेन इट कूल्स डाउन टू रूम टेम्परेचर इट बिकम कम्प्लीटली सॉलिड अगेन. तो दैट इज़ व्हाट अबाउट द इम्प्रेशन कंपाउंड. इफ़ यू apply heat on the impression compound, it becomes softens and moldable, and when it cools down it becomes completely solid again. So that is what about the impression compound. Second comes of the impression plaster. Its composition is mainly beta calcium sulfate, hemihydrate, potassium sulfate and borax. Mechanism is mucostatic impression material, meaning it records tissues at rest without compressing them. इसके प्रोज हैं हाईली एक्यूरेट विथ एक्सीलेंट डायमेंशनल स्टेबिलिटी, एंड कॉन्स है कि वेरी ब्रिटल एंड एक्सट्रीमली डिफिकल्ट टू रिमूव फ्रॉम अंडरकट्स विदाउट फ्रैक्चरिंग. Now let's talk about the zinc oxide eugenol impression paste, which also comes under the non-elastic impression materials. So form is that उसका form कैसा रहता है ZO impression paste का? Supplied as two separate paste, base paste and reactor paste. हाँ, बेस पेस्ट कम्स में का क्या आता है? जिंक ऑक्साइड, वेजिटेबल ऑयल, एंड रिएक्टर पेस्ट में आता है यूजिनॉल, रेजिन एंड एक्सेलरेटर्स. सेटिंग रिएक्शन दैट इज जिंक ऑक्साइड प्लस यूजिनॉल इज इक्वल टू जिंक यूजिनोलेट प्लस वाटर. यूजेस क्या है इसका? फाइनल इंप्रेशंस फॉर कंप्लीट डेंचर्स एंड वॉश इंप्रेशंस. कॉन्स इसका है कि यूजिनॉल कैन कॉज अ शार्प बर्निंग सेंसेशन ऑन सॉफ्ट टिश्यूज. ओके, तो दैट इज ऑल अबाउट द जिंक ऑक्साइड यूजिनॉल impression paste. You can see the diagram on your book, okay, and how it looks like and what it comes like. And then we jump into the elastic impression materials, that is hydrocolloid and elastomeric impression materials. So the first come is hydrocolloids. Now let's switch gears to materials that can flex and stretch around teeth without breaking. First up are hydrocolloids, that is material containing water held in colloidal state. So the हाइड्रोकोलाइड जो है वो मटेरियल दैट एग्जिस्ट इन दी टू फॉर्म्स. ओके, सो द रिवर्सिबल हाइड्रोकोलाइड अगार एंड इरिवर्सिबल हाइड्रोकोलाइड एल्जिनेट. सो द फर्स्ट कम्स रिवर्सिबल हाइड्रोकोलाइड अगार. डेफिनेशन इज an elastic material that can shift back and forth between a liquid, that is sol, and a semi-solid gel purely based on temperature change. The cycle happens, that is the sol liquid at 100 degree Celsius, cooling अगर हम करें 37 डिग्री सेल्सियस में तो it converts into the gel semi solid, और वही gel semi solid को हम हीट करेंगे तो वो सॉल में सॉल्यूशन में बदलेगा. इसके प्रोज ये हैं कि हाईली एक्यूरेट है एंड हाइड्रोफिलिक, दैट इज लव्स वाटर, सो इट परफॉर्म्स ब्यूटीफुली इन अ मॉइस्ट ओरल एनवायरमेंट. एंड कॉन्स डिसएडवांटेज ये कि रिक्वायर्स एक्सपेंसिव स्पेशलाइज वाटर बाथ इक्विपमेंट एंड हैज पुअर डायमेंशनल स्टेबिलिटी. तो अगर मैं एग्जांपल दूँ फॉर द रिवर्सिबल हाइड्रोकोलाइड अगार, तो थिंक ऑफ अ प्लेन जेलेटिन और जेलो, है ना. इफ़ यू हीट इट अप इट मेल्ट्स इनटू अ लिक्विड, और इफ़ यू पॉप इट अप इन द फ्रिज इट टर्न्स इनटू जेली, एंड देन यू अगेन हीट इट अप अगेन इट मेल्ट्स राइट बैक. तो दैट इज रिवर्सिबल की सॉलिड में भी कन्वर्ट हो रहा है, लिक्विड में भी, लिक्विड से सॉलिड, सॉलिड से लिक्विड, एंड दैट इज द रिवर्सिबल पार्ट. दैट इज वाई इट इज कॉल्ड रिवर्सिबल हाइड्रोकोलाइड अगार. Then comes our irreversible hydrocolloid, that is alginate. It is the most usable thing in the clinic, okay, and you all know it. So let's talk about the alginate. So what is it? Is an elastic material that sets via chemical reaction, meaning once it sets you cannot turn it back into the liquid. That is why it is called irreversible. Key ingredients and roles, that is key ingredients is sodium potassium alginate. Its role is soluble alginate base. Calcium sulfate, the reactor that kicks off the setting. Trisodium phosphate, the retarder. It intentionally fights with the calcium sulfate first to delay the setting reaction so the dentist has time to work. Uses diagnostic casts, study models and orthodontic planning. Its cons is low tear strength and poor dimensional stability. It will shrink if it dries out or swell if left in water, okay. सो अगर आप रिवर्सिबल हाइड्रोकोलाइड एल्जिनेट का एग्जांपल लेना चाहेंगे तो थिंक ऑफ अ बेकिंग केक. You mix flour, eggs, sugar into the liquid batter, and once you bake it in the oven, a chemical reaction occurs to make a solid cake, and you can never melt that cake back into the liquid now. So that is why it is irreversible, and that is the example of the alginate. Okay, so advantages of the reversible hydrocolloid alginate is economical, comfortable, quick setting, good patient acceptance, and trisodium phosphate react first with calcium sulfate and delay setting. This is the most important point, retardation reaction. Okay. Ingredients, composition: sodium potassium alginate, soluble alginate, calcium sulfate reactor, trisodium phosphate act as retarder, diatomaceous act as filler, potassium titanium fluoride act as gypsum hardener, coloring and flavoring agent act as the aesthetics. Okay, so that is what about the hydrocolloids. Then comes our elastomeric impression material, that is heavy hitters. And elastomers are synthetic rubber-like polymers engineered for ultra-high precision. They are the go-to choices for highly accurate work like crowns, bridges and dental implants. So there are 4 distinct families of elastomer, that is polysulfide impression material, condensation silicone impression material, addition silicone impression material, polyether impression materials. So the first comes the polysulfide. So reaction is condensation polymerization. Its pros is highest tear strength and highly flexible. Its cons is smells terribly like sulfur, rotten eggs, stains clothing and has a very long setting time. But its advantage is that the polysulfide has high tear strength and flexible, and it is used in fixed prosthodontic impressions. Then comes this condensation silicone impression material. Reaction is that key condensation polymerization that produces ethyl alcohol as byproduct. Base is hydroxy terminated silicon. Catalyst is ethyl silicate and octet. Advantages and disadvantages: it has advantage that pleasant odor, easy manipulation. Disadvantage: shrinkage due to alcohol evaporation. And condensation silicone impression material is used in crown and bridge impressions. Then comes the addition silicone impression material, that is PVS, polyvinyl siloxane. Its reaction is addition polymerization. Byproduct जो आता है वो none, and it is awesome. It is awesome impression material. Why? Because there is no byproduct to evaporate. It undergoes virtually zero shrinkage. It is highly accurate, allows for multiple models to be poured from a single impression, and is considered the gold standard of the impression material. Mark my words, it is the gold standard of the impression material. Then comes the polyether impression material, last not the least. Reaction is cationic polymerization. Pros: naturally hydrophilic, captures great detail even under the gums where moisture is present, and incredibly accurate. Cons is extremely stiff after setting and making it very hard to remove if the patient has tight undercuts. So disadvantage of polyether, that stiff after setting, difficult removal in undercuts. Advantage is excellent accuracy, hydrophilic, and it is used in the fixed prosthodontic implant impressions. Okay. So exam point is addition silicone is considered the gold standard impression material. It is the most important point of the Neet MDS. Okay, so mark it. So to make sure you ace any exam question comparing these elastomers, so memorize this comparison table. It is the most important table. Okay, and that wrap ups our complete guide to impression materials. And if this breakdown helped you see the big picture and understand the chemistry, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more high dental lectures, and drop a comment below, so letting me know which material you are working with in lab this week. And these notes are available in my Instagram handle dent mindset. आप मुझे मैसेज कर सकते हैं, DM कर सकते हैं, मैं आपको ये नोट्स प्रोवाइड करूँगी. सो स्टडी स्मार्ट, एंड आई विल सी यू इन द नेक्स्ट वीडियो. एंड कमेंट बिलो कौन सा टॉपिक मुझे लेना चाहिए नेक्स्ट डेंटल मटेरियल में ही. सो कमेंट बिलो दैट, एंड थैंक यू, एंड स्टडी स्मार्ट, एंड आई विल सी यू इन द नेक्स्ट वीडियो.